Welcome to the Arc in Headingley for the latest edition of a Rugby League Back Chat, the Rugby League chat show on which every minute drags. And we're joined by an esteemed panel this week as well. Gareth Walker from the Sunday People, Martin Sadler from League Express, Man of the People, and Gary Schofield, Some People Are Strange. Before we start this week, a quick word for one of our regular contributors, Danny Lockwood, who unfortunately can't be with us this week because of a family bereavement. And Danny, all our thoughts are with you at this time. Right, let's get stuck in to what's going to be a fantastic next few weeks of Rugby League, and it all kicks off this weekend with a Challenge Cup semi-final. Friday night, Gary Schofield, St Helens against Leeds. What a game, what a game. It is,
they're the two best teams so far that have been in the season. The league table doesn't tell lies, does it? But I think this fixture, Leeds, again, it took them 15 years to get their hands on the cup, didn't it? And I don't think they want to let go of that hold in that Challenge Cup. I don't think it's going to be a classic game, would you, to be honest, because I think Leeds are going to go into semi-final mode. They will play boring, conservative rugby league. They will test St Helens' patience for 80 minutes. Have St Helens got the patience for 80 minutes where they can play themselves, match it for every minute? Leeds will go for every 2 points that's available. We all know what Sinfield can do from there. So I don't think we're in for a classic, but I think Leeds will beat Saints, maybe by about 6 or 7 points. And I think we're in for a close game, though.
Not a classic?
Not too sure about that. If Kieran Cunningham's watching this programme, I wouldn't rely on everything that Gary said there, because I think Leeds will play a good style of rugby. I'm not quite so pessimistic about that, but I just can't call this game, Dave, and it's going to be an interesting one. Will the Friday night factor have any element in this? Because it's the first Challenge Cup semi-final ever to be played on a Friday night, as far as I'm aware. And of course, it's going to be on TV on the BBC, so it's really going to be something quite different. I just wonder how many Leeds fans are going to go over there to the Halliwell Jones Stadium to support their side, you know, because Friday night's not a great night for travel, as we know. You sort of think that Saints might have the majority of support, and if that makes a difference, well, you know, it could give them, you know, a 6 point start, couldn't it? Yeah. Effectively. So I think it's going to be a thriller, but I just don't know who's going to win it.
I love your level of optimism that one, Kieran Cunningham's watching, and two, he might take any notice of him in the first place. But
well,
anyway, we'll let that one slide. But is it going to be a classic game? It's a real opportunity for Rugby League, isn't it? Because as Martin says, it's on BBC. It's going to be the biggest domestic Rugby League audience for a long, long time.
Yeah, to be on prime time, you know, kind of television at that time is fantastic for the sport. Presents a huge stage. I think it could be a classic because St Helens, you know, positive for them is the way their halfbacks are suddenly starting to link. They've had so long having a mishmash of halfbacks and having people covering. Last few weeks we've had Travis Burns and Luke Walsh come together. Walsh is playing terrifically well. Burns was very good as well last weekend. And now they've got Adam Quinlan as well, who's kind of adding another dimension. So I think they're going to challenge Leeds, certainly.
What was interesting actually last weekend against Ulquiara, Telever came back, didn't he, for St Helens?
Yeah.
And I thought played very well after a long absence. And of course, Tom Briscoe came back for Leeds after a very long absence and looked like a fresh player starting the season again, scored 3 tries. So, you know, there's a lot of interest in all sorts of ways. I mean, you know, it's as we've said loads of times before, it's Sinfield and Peacock coming to the end of their rugby league careers. I'm sure they will be absolutely determined to get to Wembley again to crown it in that way.
No John Wilkin. What was the impact of no John Wilkin for St Helens? Because he's very much been an inspiration.
He has been a huge inspiration, and whether he's played at 7, 6 or in the back row, he's really took over that leadership lead in St Helens' team. But the reason why I'm saying from a point of view being a classic, first of all, when you look at the matchups, you just mentioned Quinlan there at full-back with Hardacre, you look at the centres, you look at the half-backs and also to the forward-back. On paper, yes, with the matchups, it should be a quality in a classic game of rugby league. But I just think the way that Leeds are going to take on this game, look at the semi-final last year against Warrington. You know, quite clearly, they had a game plan that frustrated Warrington. When they played Hull this year in the quarter-final, 5 weeks ago, they exactly did that. And that's the sort of game plan I think they will play on Friday night, which will be very frustrating for an attack-minded St Helens team. Leeds will be patient for that 80 minutes. And if Leeds just win by 2 points, by maybe a winning goal from Kevin Sinfield, that's how they're going to play.
The other evidence actually in support of your theory, Gary, is if you look back at the Challenge Cup final last year, when they strangled Castle, didn't they? They absolutely strangled the life out of them.
So my question is going to be for Kieran, I'm sure he's watching, is is your team going to be patient enough to hold Leeds for the full 80 minutes on Friday? Because Leeds will look at the scraps, and as we all know, Tom Briscoe came back last weekend with hat-trick, Callum Watkins in great form, Hardacre at full-back there, Joel Moon and Ryan Hall. We know the quality, they're creating enough from there. So our St Helens going to be patient with the game plan Leeds will play on Friday night.
There can't be any worse, can there, than when they met recently at Headingley and St Helens, the first 15 minutes, you know, they dropped the ball from the kick-off.
Well, they've done it twice. Leeds have belted them twice, haven't they, already this season?
And that could be, you know, that's going to be a motivation, I think, for St Helens. They haven't risen to that challenge against Leeds, have they, so far this year? What better to do it than, you know, on live television on a Friday night?
But it's a funny thing, isn't it, that some teams seem to be able to beat certain other teams, you know, and Leeds seem to be able to do it to Saints this year. But when you look at it, I think the Leeds backline looks infinitely better than Saints, but whether the Leeds forwards are better than the St Helens pack is, you know, a much more debatable issue, I think. And the Saints pack are going to have to get right on top pretty early, I think, if St Helens are going to win this game.
Yeah, and this Adam Quinlan's a really interesting character, isn't he? Because when you first see him, you think he's not big enough to play full-back. They're going to bomb him left, right and centre. He's looked as solid as Zach Hardacre.
Well, to be honest with you, when I heard the name Quinlan, and I thought, well, who is he? Who is he? You know, why is St Helens bringing somebody who really nobody's heard of? I'm sure the St Helens fans will say exactly the same, but I'll tell you what, he's settled in very well, hasn't he? And his
Kieran
support
Cunningham's a smart coach, in my opinion, Gary, with good judgment.
But his support
which is probably why he's
play,
watching
but his
this
support
programme.
play certainly around that ruck area. And as we all know how James Roby wants to play, he wants to play off quick play the balls, and the back of quick play the balls. And Quinlan's have picked up very, very quickly what Roby does. But I don't think Saints will get that sort of ease there with the quick play the balls. Leeds, they know exactly how St Helens play. They will come up with the right game plan, and I think it'll be about 7 points. I think this could be something like about 15-8 or 18-12 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Quinlan is a half, isn't he? He's not naturally full-back, and I think Kieran Cunningham was saying they've been watching him for a while. It's not been a panic buy. They've been watching him for quite a bit as someone to bring in. And he gives them, when James Roby didn't play, did he, against Hull KR on Friday, and Quinlan very often slotted in that dummy half role, and he gives them a bit of extra option.
He made an electric break, didn't he, I think, for one of the tries in the first half, when I think it was Burns finished it off after Josh Jones supported him, but that's an extra dimension. If he can jump in there, because he is electrically quick, he looks Quinlan off the mark, so I think that can add an extra dimension. The only
cautionary thing about that is that he could do that against Hull KR. I'm not quite sure he will do it against Leeds. You know, it's going to be a very different game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Leeds to win, and I think they'll regain the Challenge Cup as well.
Do you? Whoever wins that are going to be favourites, aren't they? Is that fair on Hull KR and Warrington?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
Not necessarily. So far, Warrington always do well at Wembley, don't they? They've been there 3 times and won every time. And you know, again, some teams do well at certain stadia, and Leeds never did at Wembley, did they, until last year? So I don't think it's going to be a one-horse race if it's, say, Leeds Warrington at Wembley. I think it'd be a really heck of a game, especially if Chris Sandow's playing for Warrington. That's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about the signs a little bit later on, but just turning our attention to that Saturday semi-final, which has gone a little bit under the radar because everyone's talking about Friday night lights and all that, and the big game. But Warrington against Hull KR at Headingley, that's going to be a big crowd, actually, isn't it? Hull KR are going to take quite a few fans there.
Well, they've sold out the South Stand, I think. I think that's what they've been saying, so that will make for a terrific atmosphere. And it's not. It's only a month or so ago that Hull KR were beating Warrington comfortably at home, weren't they?
Yeah.
But since then, the kind of impetus seems to have switched for both. You know, Hull KR seem to. Those injuries have caught up with them. Albert Kelly almost playing on one leg at times, and Warrington have gone away and won handsomely at Castleford last week. So the kind of impetus has changed, I think, with those two teams over the last month.
Warrington overall have got far too much quality coming this weekend. Everybody's in form. The big game players are in form. And the halfbacks seem to have hit that little bit where inconsistency has been a problem all season, so they seem to be hitting the straps. And I'm afraid to say this game on Saturday is going to be too one-sided, and I think, unfortunately, this game could be over by half-time. Warrington won't want to mess about. They will want to put this game to bed very, very early, and I think this game could be over by half-time.
Well, let me add a cautionary note, Gary, because I broadly agree with you. I think that is a danger, what you say. But let's just think back a bit too early this season. Wigan 60, Warrington, Hull KR 0.
Yeah.
And then the following week, Hull KR went to Wigan again. Actually, they went to Lee Sports Village, if you remember, and beat Wigan in the Challenge Cup. So Hull KR are a fairly unpredictable side, or have been this year, haven't they? And you know, I wouldn't write them off. I think on Friday night at St Helens, they knew they weren't going to, get through to the top 8, and probably held themselves back really. So. I mean, I can't see them doing it, and a lot will depend on Albert Kelly, won't it? Let's face it. And you think, well, Warrington just looked too strong at this stage. But I wouldn't give up if I were a Hull KR fan.
And also, I think that happened about 4 or 5 weeks ago. That result wasn't, and Tony Smith was disgusted with his players. And I would imagine this week it's been, hey, listen, You know, we got embarrassed at Hull KR a few weeks ago. We're not going to make sure it's going to happen again to the Challenge Cup semi-final. I'm afraid this game's going to be over at half-time.
They've had some classic Challenge. If you look back in history, recent history, they've had some classic Challenge Cup ties, haven't they? The one when Justin Morgan was in charge at Hull KR, and they were a championship team, and they beat Warrington, rested Lee Breers, and then the other one a few years later when Lee Breers played and kicked the drop goal. Do you think it could be another absolute? Has it got the potential to be an absolute classic?
I think so much rests on Albert Kelly. If we get a fully fit one, we've been at games this year when Albert Kelly has stood out on, you know, everybody on the field. If he's fully fit and plays as he can, then they've got a shot. But the evidence in recent weeks, I think it was half-time at Salford, he ran the game first half. Second half came out with a heavily bandaged knee, and since then we've not quite seen that top Albert Kelly. If he's not firing, like Gary says there, I think it could be one-sided.
The problem is, Gareth and Martin as well, for Albert Kelly on Saturday is, if his forwards are getting battered by the Warrington forwards, which is going to happen, I can reassure you that's going to happen, that's where the marker is going to be put down. You won't be seeing Albert Kelly because he can't play on the back of forwards who are getting battered. So it may be a quiet game for him. He's a quality player, but if his forwards are getting battered, then unfortunately Albert Kelly will not have any influence on this game.
Did you see enough in Chisholm, who's the new Hulkingston Rovers signing, enough in Chisholm the other night, French international of course, to suggest that he could make an impact in this game if he's selected?
He did one or two very smart things, didn't he? There was one try where he gave a great final pass. You know,
he made the initial pass to Cockaigne, and then he was there in support as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But too early to say really for me. I think I wouldn't. You know, if we're going to say that Chisholm is going to sort out Hulkingston Rovers' trip to Wembley this year, I think that's a big thing to put on his shoulders.
It'll be interesting to see whether he starts, isn't he? Because he's gone with Kelly and Maurice Blair. You know, does he break that up for Chisholm and put Blair back at loose forward? Or he's got a couple of decisions to make there, I think.
Well, that's going to be interesting. So you're saying Leeds and Warrington
I am indeed.
Is your tip?
Leeds, a pretty close game with St Helens. Warrington, I'm afraid to say, quite easy.
Which could upset St Helens' winning run this season, because of course you were the man who said they wouldn't get beaten at all this season. And we'll pass that one. Gareth, who do you reckon?
I'm going to go St Helens Warrington.
St Helens Warrington.
Leeds Warrington in my case.
Leeds Warrington. Okay, we'll be interested. We'll see. I think St Helens Hulkingston Rovers.
Just to be different. I think that's the first time me and Martin Sadler's ever agreed.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
And it is let's just go back to this. It is a massive opportunity for the game. It's not just us rugby league people are going to be looking on. There's going to be a lot of people who are new to rugby league looking on. How important is it that the game gets it right on Friday night?
Well, I think it is important, but I think it will get it right, because we know it's going to be a highly competitive game, don't we?
Yeah.
And both sides are going to be really committed to winning. They're both, of equal standing. I'd be amazed if it wasn't a really great spectacle, Dave. And it's going to be a great commentary as well, of course.
Of course.
So, I've got every confidence that we're going to have a real great event.
But I think it's 2,500, 3,000 tickets Leeds have sold. What does that say about rugby league? Massive game, semi-final, and only 3,000 Leeds fans going across there.
Well, if that's right, it is disappointing, isn't it? It says a bit about the Challenge Cup in recent years, but that's a massive shame for me. Any of those Leeds fans who went to Wembley last year, you'd think they'd want to be there on Friday night again to watch that, because it's the opportunity's there for them, and hopefully, there'll be a big walk up, a big take up later on, because a full stadium will add to what we can offer casual viewers on Friday night.
What's really strange about that, Dave, isn't it, is that Leeds are getting about 15,000 to every home game.
Well, massive. Against Catalan, it was 15,000, and there were
no Catalan fans there. So they're going to take about 20% of those fans. Hulkingston Rovers are taking 6,000 or 7,000 to Headingley the following day, which is actually their average, roughly. Just about anyway. So how come they're taking 100% and Leeds are taking 20%? It really is strange, isn't it?
Because I've heard the excuse that it's a Friday night and it's difficult to travel across the M62.
Yeah.
But Leeds and St Helens always play on a Friday night.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
but again, we're talking about itself being live on a Friday night television on a different station. But I think it'd be great for the game, because for mine, I'm still the believer the Challenge Cup is the biggest competition going in our competition, and I'm sure both teams will grace that. And as we mentioned with the viewers, the Challenge Cup is huge for our great game.
Yeah. Final at Wembley, of course, and the statue is going to be at Wembley. Are you on the statue? You're not on the statue. But the statue built at Wembley, so we're making this big thing about Wembley. Has Wembley had its day? You know, should we be looking? Once upon a time, it was Rugby League's big day out was going to London, but it's not a big day out anymore.
Oh, it is. I
think it is for a lot of people.
But it's not. You go to Wembley now. It used to be. You used to see Dewsbury fans. You see Hunslet fans.
I still see them every time I go down. I still see all the fans, you know, from the areas what you've mentioned, up from Cumbria, all different parts of, you know, Lancashire, Yorkshire. Yeah, it's a huge day, Dave. It's a huge, and I think the more what we need to tell people how big the Challenge Cup is, rather than looking at the demise of it, you know, quite clearly. You know, it is there because, as I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Every player will tell you they would rather be at Wembley winning a Challenge Cup final, winning a Challenge Cup finals winners medal, than I would say than a grand final medal.
Well, the big disappointment about Wembley, Dave, is Club Wembley and all those empty seats that you see around the middle tier of Wembley, which I guess, you know, for the Challenge Cup final are probably less than half full. And I find that really disappointing that we can't persuade all those people who've invested in those seats and those boxes at Wembley to come to our sport. And it sort of shows, doesn't it, the job we have to do to really promote the Challenge Cup final as a major event in the sporting year. It just doesn't, you know, seem to grab them in the way that we'd like it to. And you know, I think the people, you know, one day hopefully we'll get there and find all those seats will be sold, will be full. But it's quite a long way off, I think.
Will you still take it to Wembley, Gareth?
I think Wembley's fantastic and it has to be a key part of it, but I agree with you in that. I mean, not just the Club Wembley seats. In recent years, you know, that top tier hasn't been full for the final, where in years gone by it would have been. So there is a job to do, definitely, and for me, we should be making more of the history of the competition. You know, this sport didn't start in 1996 over here. There's a hugely rich history, and the more that everyone can buy into that, I know the BBC do a great job with kind of putting that history forward. I think we can do more with that because it's a great strength of the game.
I think you're right, Gareth. And I think we should be making clubs take tickets for Wembley and sell them. You know, if you're a Super League club, you should actually have 2,000 tickets every year for Wembley that you sell to your supporters. When you're saying that, you know, we're not seeing the fans from other clubs coming down, well, make sure, you know, Rugby Union's been doing that for years, hasn't it? Selling tickets to its major internationals through its clubs.
Even down to local amateur clubs, you can go to the local
absolutely, and we've never really done that adequately in Rugby League, in my opinion. You know, so in every club, whatever tier you're at, you ought to have a certain number of tickets that you are given and charged for by the RFL at a significant discount that you sell on and make money for your club and fill the stadium.
Yeah. And don't forget, of course, it's Rugby League's 120th birthday, the Challenge Cup final, this time on that big Wembley day. We're back in just a few moments' time when we'll be talking, amongst other things, the Super 8s. Welcome back to the Arc in Headingley. Back chat this week is, well, we've looked at the Challenge Cup, going to be a fantastic weekend. And then it really kicks off as far as the Super 8s are concerned. We've had the release of the first round of games this week, well, the whole fixtures, but we're going to talk about the first round of games. Wigan against Huddersfield on the Thursday, Cass Hull, Leeds Warrington on the Friday, Catalan against St Helens on the Saturday, Lee against Hull KR also on the Saturday, and then we've got Bradford Sheffield, Halifax Widnes, Salford Wakefield, Dewsbury Hunslet, Featherstone Whitehaven, London Doncaster, Workington against Backley. It's all on the website if you want to have a look at those. But there's some key games already in there. Marty, start with you. Some key games. I mean, Hull at Castleford, for example, is a must-win game for Hull. If they lose that, then their ambitions are over straight away.
Well, this is the crux of the season, isn't it? You know, we've got the new structure, and this is where it's going to either prove itself or not prove itself. And certainly, it looks very, very exciting. Doesn't look quite so exciting though for Hull and Catalans, does it? Because, you know, they're too many points behind the fourth team, which is Huddersfield, to really make you think they've got a chance of getting up there. And certainly, you're right. If Hull lose to Castleford and the Catalans don't get a result against Saints, then it's over for them, isn't it? Yeah. So it then becomes a six-horse race.
It's over already, really, couldn't you?
Well, just about. I mean, I'd be amazed to see Hull getting in the top four.
Yeah.
So it's really a six-horse race. I mean, Warrington, in a way, rescued it last weekend, didn't they, by winning at Castleford, and they're now 4 points behind the top four, and that's within striking distance just about. But it is only 7 games, so, you know, Warrington will have to win probably at least 6 games to be sure of getting up there.
I think this year is going to really underline, isn't it, the importance of making sure you're in the 4 or very close to the 4 before this breakaway starts.
You've got to do, haven't you? And as Marty just touched on there, you can forget about Hull saying Catalans qualify for the top 4. It's as simple as that. They're going to lose the first games of this Super 8. Saints will beat Catalans and Castle beat Hull, so forget about them. But then, again, you look at the consistency of performances. Can Castleford handle the pressure week in and week out? Can Huddersfield handle the pressure week in and week out? I don't think they can. So for mine, Martin's mentioned there, it may be a 6 team, may come down to 6 team. I think it's only 4. It's Leeds, St Helens, Wigan, and Warrington, the way they're hitting their straps. I think it's down to the 4, Dave.
Well, the opening game is particularly interesting, isn't it? Wigan v Huddersfield.
Yep.
So Huddersfield are 4th. If they can win at Wigan, that will be an absolutely massive boost for their chances of staying in the 4. If they lose, then, Castle will probably get, pull level with them. Warrington may well pull level, but they've got a game at Leeds, of course, so that's not going to be easy for them either. That's
well, it won't be.
What a Huddersfield win would do as well would drag Wigan back in, because Huddersfield are only 3 points behind Wigan at the moment, so then all of a sudden you might get Wigan getting dragged back in. So it is a big game.
And the big question mark about Huddersfield is this time of year, isn't it? I mean, they've gone to Wigan and won. They've got a great record, actually, in recent years, haven't they, out Wigan? But have they got the mentality, Gareth, to actually make their mark this time around at the business end of the season?
Yeah, well, I heard Luke Robinson talking to you last week and saying it's up to the players now to prove people wrong. He said he could see why outsiders would say Huddersfield haven't got a bottle for this. They've got to change their mindset, because they can beat these big teams, but not in the big situations. So it really is over to them now, that they have got to stand up and prove.
Gareth, you've just hit the nail on the head there, and I've said it for the last 2 years. When the crunch has been on, Huddersfield have bottled it. It's as simple as that. And I just think, again, it's going to happen against us. They won't go to Wigan and beat Wigan, because we know how important it is for Sean Wayne, not just for the consistency, but getting back to that grand final. So the big question is, can Huddersfield handle the pressure? Are they going to bottle it? I don't think they've got the players who can handle that pressure.
And the crunch was on for Wigan last weekend at Hull, wasn't it? They went to Hull, they were very determined to win, and they absolutely poleaxed Hull, really.
Hull were poor, though.
Well, Hull were poor, but Wigan played extremely well, in my opinion. And I think, they're going to... Wigan are good at getting up at the right time of the season. They have been in the last few years, and I think they're going to be a real big challenge.
Yeah, just taking upon what you said there, Gareth, and you hit the nail on the head. Huddersfield do bottle it. It's been proven over the last couple of seasons they haven't been able to handle the semi-final football, and I can't see them going to Wigan whatsoever and getting the 2 points. Wigan, this time of the season, Sean Wayne with his consistency, and he wants to make sure that not only qualifying for the top 4, but getting back to the grand final as well. So for mine, Huddersfield cannot handle the pressure.
And Sean O'Loughlin looking fit as well. That's going to be a factor for.
Well, he's a must that he stays fit, because not only what he brings to that Wigan team, but what he brings to Matty Smith. Because if O'Loughlin doesn't play, Matty Smith might as well be sat with me in the stands, because quite clearly at times he's been non-existent in the Wigan performances.
Well, Wigan are fit generally, aren't they? They're almost lining up 1 to 13 recently, just missing Dan Sargent, and they'll have had the week off for the semi-final, so you would think they'd be fresh for this last 7 games.
Well, I was going to say that's another factor, isn't it? A lot of clubs having a week off. 1 or 2 clubs are playing this week, of course. 4 clubs are playing this week and then backing up again. Wigan haven't been great after breaks. Wigan have been flat after breaks this season, haven't they? Is that fair to say? Sean Wayne has said that the breaks don't do them any favours.
No, they don't like having breaks, do they? Sean likes that regularity and consistency of playing, but I'd be amazed if they were affected by it. This break. I think the break is just coming at the right time, actually, for some of these clubs. A lot of clubs have looked a bit tired. They look as though they need a break. The players can get away this weekend, perhaps, and forget about rugby league for a couple of days. And I think they'll come back really refreshed.
Well, I think that's why they played so well last week against Hull, because they knew they were going to have that week off. So they didn't hold back, did they? In that performance. But the other fixture as well, when we look at it with the Leeds Rhinos, Warrington Wolves, let's not forget Warrington have done the double so far over Leeds this season, so they won't be frightened going to Headingley, for their first game there, to put a marker down to hopefully maybe achieve what they want to achieve, getting the top 4.
How much does the Challenge Cup semi-final affect players? It's not any other game, is it? I mean, both those teams, Leeds and Warrington, that could be a Challenge Cup dress rehearsal. You're predicting it will be a Challenge Cup dress rehearsal. So if they both won the week before and been on that high, how does that affect a team?
Well, it won't do for mine, because at the end of the day it's all about, again, the level of consistency. It's a pressurised game. Leeds know that if they win the first 3 games, they're qualified, so they may be able to take it a bit easy. And Warrington know it's a must-win for them. So I don't think, from a semi-final point of view, as we know, the teams don't celebrate like they used to do. No. So they'll be ready. They'll be making sure that they'll both be ready for a top-quality performance, because the 2 points is a must for the both teams.
The thing to remember is that the Leeds-Warrington game is more important for Warrington
I was going to say,
than it is for Leeds. Warrington have to win it. Leeds would like to win it. And you know, it comes back to that thing, doesn't it? The motivation is going to be massive for Warrington, which can be positive or negative, of course, because it could, you know, it could make them almost nervous about the game, knowing how important it is, particularly if they've got to Wembley the previous weekend. So, you know, it's unpredictable, and that's really what we like to see.
You made a very good point about the other semi-finalists who we're not mentioning about, Hull-Kingston Rovers at Lee in that first week.
Yeah, well, that's where the rest might really come in, I guess. If Hull are focusing all their energy and attention on this Cup semi-final, win or lose at weekend, you know, they've got to get up again, because in that middle eights, that is a proper 7-game league, isn't it? You know, everyone starts from scratch.
Yeah.
You lose your first game and the pressure will start to build, I think. Lee, I don't think they'll be unhappy with having got Hull KR in the first week and got them at home. Let's not forget, they've not lost at home for 2 years nearly, Lee, now. Although the only one team that has won at Lee Sports Village is Hull KR, of course.
I would well imagine Lee Centurions will be chomping at the bit to get it Hull.
I'm sure they will.
They're going to be chomping at the bit to get Hull KR there, and I'm sure they are going to get beat in the semi-final. They'll be sulking, and Lee will be reminding them that they've been walloped in the Challenge Cup semi-final. I'm all right predicting here, they may win, we never know, do we? But what I'm saying is Lee will be chomping at the bit to get the first game against Hull-Kingston Rovers.
And because of the structure, you know, the teams that lose in the first week in the middle eight,
Pressure's on.
immediate crisis, isn't it? Really, immediate crisis. You know, you've got Widnes at Halifax. You know, you wouldn't think that they'd lose there, would you? But
Well,
Halifax have won 9 in a they've won 9 in a row, Halifax, and you know they keep telling me that they deserve some credit for that, and they do.
I'll tell you what as well, Martin. I've seen Halifax 2 or 3 times this season. They're playing now. They're playing some smart, attractive rugby league.
Richard Marshall's done a real great job.
He has indeed. You know, they're playing some smart, attractive rugby league, and they will ask Widnes all sorts of questions. But then you look at the other fixture, Salford and Wakefield. Geez, isn't the pressure on there? Isn't the pressure on there?
How important is that? Yeah.
I mean, Halifax, just go back to Halifax, what a great run up to this with that victory over Bradford, and the way they did it to win lead 14-0, Bradford come back winning 16-14, and then for them to show the character to win through on the end on that.
And in front of a 4,500 plus crowd. I think Halifax are probably one of the biggest endorsements of the new structure, because that character, being able to compete against the bigger clubs again, has revitalised Halifax and their supporters.
The interesting thing is that Halifax weren't supposed to get in the top 4, were they, of the championship? Because they didn't get the big money. No, they didn't get the big money. It was it was Bradford, Lee, London and Featherstone.
Featherstone received almost twice as much.
They were the teams that got the money, and London and Featherstone didn't make it. So again, that's a real positive for Halifax and Sheffield. You know, Sheffield have been terrific as well.
I think with the credit there, when you're talking about, you know, Halifax shouldn't have been in that top 4. Well, I think you've got to give huge credit to the coach, haven't you? You know,
absolutely.
We know
yes.
London made some big signings there, so did Featherstone, and for them it's been an absolute disaster of a season.
It has.
Surely, not just with the coaching, but the man management, what Richard Marshall's brought to Halifax, it's been outstanding.
He inherited the squad as well, didn't he, from Carl Harrison? He didn't make any signings until the season got going. I think he added Ryan Manili, the hooker, and 1 or 2 here and there, but he didn't even sign the squad, so it took him a little bit of time because they wanted to play a more expansive style of play. But he's brought that in 9 in a row. You know, they are the form team in the championship.
And beat some good teams along the way. But I mean, we heard from Richard Marshall this last week saying, you know, we hope we can ruffle a few feathers, and our ambition is to get into Super League sometime. But it doesn't seem they've got the ambition to do it this time, that it might be too early for them if they get promoted. Is that a flaw in the system?
No, not really, because you've got to bear in mind that Richard Marshall is probably deliberately underplaying his team's chances. You know, let's go under the radar a bit, which is what they've done for most of this season.
But it'd be a more difficult transition for them. A Lee or a Bradford are already full-time. Halifax would have to go full-time, but at the moment they're a part-time club. Well,
I think if they do by any chance get into the into Super League next year, they won't turn it down, will they? Let's put it that way. They will be only too delighted, and I don't think that's a problem for them. But you know, it's really going to be great to see them playing Widnes that first weekend, and just to see how they do perform. Because you know, if anybody underestimates Halifax, I think they'll do it at their peril.
Yeah, they won't. But they won't be frightened of Widnes coming to.
No, not at all.
To the show. No way, mate. They won't be frightened or intimidated. No way, mate.
Is there a case? Let me just ask, is there a case if a Halifax go up, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but if Halifax do go up, is there a case for us to excuse them staying part time, knowing that they're going to get knocked back down, but they pick up the money from a Super League year, and therefore they can build for the future? Is there a case for that, or would they have to go full time?
Well, it's an interesting thought, because they've said they will go part time in the Championship next year. You know, they've got the extra funding. Sheffield said they'll go full time in the Championship. Halifax have got this very definite part time plan. So I think it would create a very interesting debate, wouldn't it? But it would be incredibly tough to compete in Super League as a part-time team.
What Halifax has realised, haven't they? You know, from the good times what they had, you know, years ago to the times where they've got now, it's just steady progress. And if it did manage for them, I don't think they would go all out and, you know, signing players left, right and centre and forgetting the guys who have got them into that position. So it is going to be a slow process, but tell you what, don't write them off. Don't write them off, Woodsy.
There's some vulnerability there, isn't there? I mean, after that first week, I mean, by definition, one of the Super League teams is going to be on 0 points because Salford play Wakefield. And as you say, I mean, if Widnes get beaten and Hull KR get beaten, what a start, what an advert that is for the middle eights. Right away, straight up.
Well, we've all been talking about Wakefield, you know, we all know what's happened there. So now, they've had the pre-season for the last 7 games, so this is where their season starts now. So if Wakefield start off brilliantly against Salford, where does leave that? Salford are in a mess as it is.
Yeah.
You know, they're in a bigger mess if they start out, you know, on no points after one game.
I tell you what, who would have thought that one day we would see 2 of the super coaches, Brian Smith and Tim Sheens, coaching against each other in the second tier of British Rugby League?
Tim Sheens is not the coach, is he? Tim Sheens is not the coach.
But coming into second tier is fantastic, isn't it? You know, the NRL must be looking, what's going on here?
And the other fascinating thing for me is how does it work when you see a Wakefield who've reshaped half of their squad, haven't they? You know, and another
3 debutants last weekend.
Yeah, they've got a number 41 in their squad now. Against a Lee who said we're sticking with what we've got. You know, they have made a couple of mid-season additions, but their half-backs, full-back, hooker have played together for 2 or 3 years. How's that going to work? You know, is this the right approach, Wakefields, or is it Lee's? We're going to find out.
Oh, reverse that. Brian Smith and Tim Sheens might be saying, what the hell are we doing here?
Wayne Bennett for Hunslet. Let's start the campaign here. You never know. So, I mean, we might be in for a big wake-up call, actually. We might, after a couple of weeks, say, actually, there is a big difference between Super League and Championship. So all this might be nonsense. But at this stage, are you predicting 1, 2, maybe 3 clubs with a real chance of getting promotion from the Championship? Or is that a pipe dream?
My prediction is that Lee will get promotion.
Yeah.
I think Lee have proved themselves to be a real fine side. Every time they've played a Super League side, I mean, they've beaten Wakefield, they've beaten Salford this year. They came fairly close to beating Warrington, let's face it. You know, and I think they've got what it takes. Like, they've got a tremendous stadium, great support, you know, and I think they can do it. The real question is, which team would they replace?
Yeah.
And that's a bit harder to predict, in my opinion. And you know, I just wouldn't like to say. I mean, we all think Wakefield have been the weakest team in the Super League this year, but of course, Wakefield's whole season has been based on preparing for these 7 matches over the next few weeks. And it's going to be fascinating to see whether that approach actually pays dividends or not.
Lee for the top 3? Or will they have to rely on a £1 million match?
I think they could get in the top 3. They've got 4 home games, haven't they? And they're very good at home. So I think you win those 4 home games, you're a long way to being in that top 3.
You are.
They won't, you know, the factors against Championship clubs in the past when you were part-time, where they had a lack of experience, they don't apply the full-time. They can name a front row with Gareth Hock, Fui, Moi Moi, Mickey Hyam. They won't be daunted by playing Hull KR, Salford, Wakefield, Widnes. Yeah. I think they've got a genuine chance of getting in the top 3.
You're missing Bob Bissick out of that list as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But an awful lot of questions will be answered in that first game, won't they? You know, Hull KR, if Lee beat Hull KR in that first game, I think they become favourites to, you know, get up, in my view. And I think they'll gain an unstoppable momentum.
Neil Hutchell made an interesting point last week ahead of this and said, you know, if you finish 8th, as Hull have, season over. If you finish 9th, actually your season starts. It's more interesting to be a Hull KR fan now than it is a Hull fan.
Well, I think it could be worrying times, you know, couldn't it? You know, because let's say
it could be too exciting.
Yeah. You know, and worrying times because let's not, you know, Camp Page is out as we know there, and if Albert goes out there, you know, it could be worrying times. Never mind exciting times. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah.
I think injuries could play a huge part in that middle eight because generally speaking, they aren't the clubs with the biggest squads or the most depth. You lose 1 or 2 key players. I think from any of the 8 clubs, it's going to be tough.
And I'll tell you what, Zoe, you know, your Leeds Centurions, your Bradford Bulls, Halifax and Sheffield, they will be looking so much forward to playing to these Super League clubs and proving themselves and giving them a good battering. I'm really looking forward to them. Yeah. I am really getting stuck into it.
Well, Bradford's an interesting case, aren't they? We've not really talked about them, but they drew with Lee recently, and they've not had Lee Gaskell playing for them for the last few games. He's going to be back, we think, you know, for the start of this campaign. They've got a relatively, I hate to say an easy game, but they've got a game they should win in the first week against Sheffield Eagles at home. So, you know, if they get off to a good start, and if Lee Gaskell is back and
Jake
pulling the
Mullaney
strings, Mullaney as well.
Yeah.
They could build up some momentum as well, and I think it's very fascinating. Very unpredictable as well.
It's fine. We're going to have to leave it there for a moment. We'll be back in a second. Just hold that thought, Gary, because we're back in a second. But just as a final word on that, isn't it fantastic that at this stage of the season we're getting so excited about so many games, which shows that the system is working at least for the time being. We're back in just a minute, back at the Arc here in Headingley for the final part of Back Chat. Join us soon. Welcome back to the third and final part of Back Chat, and this is of course the part regular viewers will know when we concentrate more on the NRL and things that are happening down under, and the big story from the NRL this week, and it has implications from an England point of view, is Sean Johnson's injury, the ankle injury that's ruled him out from the Warriors for the rest of the season, and almost certainly rules him out of the Test series against England as well. Should we be smiling as England Rugby League fans, Gary Schofield?
A little bit, because I think he proved last year, wasn't he, that he was the best player in the world, and certainly international level, and the consistency what he's shown at the Warriors over the last 3 months has been absolutely outstanding. He's got something that a lot of players don't have. That's just that individual flair, that individual brilliance, what's asked many questions. But I guess the situation is, Woods, he's Benji Marshall. He may be recalled. It's not a bad replacement, is he?
He's not bad, but he's getting on a bit, hasn't he? And he lost a bit in rugby union, didn't he? He's not Sean Johnson anyway.
No, I'm gutted that Sean Johnson's not going to be playing. I think he would have been terrific for the Test series. You take a game to the Olympic Stadium in London, you want the best players in the world on that stage, and Sean Johnson last year was the best player in the world. I think it's a real shame. I think England will be a bit disappointed. You speak to players, they always say, we want to play against the best, and they probably want to get one back over Sean Johnson for what he did to them at Wembley in the World Cup. So I think it's a real shame, but it does open the door for somebody else, whether it be Benji Marshall or whether it's a youngster that the Kiwis might unearth.
If we win the series 2-1 or 3-0, do we really care?
Well, if we win the series,
no.
If we win the series, they can come back and say, well, we didn't have our best player playing for us.
Well, I'd much rather for us as well.
I'm like Gareth. I'd much rather Sean Johnson was coming. Really, just because I just enjoy watching him play.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. And as Gareth says again, playing at the Olympic Stadium, that's just the sort of venue that a player like him, I think, would shine at. And I think we can beat the Kiwis, and I think we can beat the Kiwis, whether he plays or not. But I think victory would be that much sweeter if we thought we were playing against the very best Kiwi side. I know we beat the Kiwis in 2007 in the 3-match series, but at that time they weren't particularly well coached, and some of their better players weren't here, and it gave them a bit of a cop-out, didn't it, to say you've not really beaten the best of us. And Tony Smith was the Great Britain coach at that time, and said, well, that's rubbish, we beat what was in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we want the best against the best.
I just want to put a question to you then. If Sean Johnson's not coming, but if he was, and you think we can beat New Zealand, in what department can we beat New Zealand?
Well, I think we can beat New Zealand in the forwards.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the forwards, but again, it's scoring points.
In the pack, and I think, scoring points. I think half-back, if Sean Johnson's playing, half-back is where the Kiwis have got it over us. But I think, in the three-quarters and at full-back, I don't think, the Kiwis are better than we are. I just think that's, the half-back positions are crucial, and it's difficult to know at this stage precisely who will be playing for us.
Let me just throw one in here then, at the risk of Gary Schofield leaning back so far on his chair as he laughs derisively. But could it almost do England a favour in that because the New Zealand Warriors are now missing a half, they might put Sam Tompkins, I know they're not picking him this week, but they might put Sam Tompkins in there. Sam has a great end of season. Gary Schofield's shaking his head. A great end of season, and therefore Steve McNamara starts thinking, well, maybe I'll play him at the halves and Zach at fullback.
David Woods, how many times do I have to tell you? Martin Sadler, Graham Walker, you've got to be a specialist halfback.
You've got to get his name. Gareth. This is Martin Sadler.
Yeah, but anyway,
how much of this have you been drinking?
You've got to be a specialist halfback, and Sam is not a specialist halfback. If you're a halfback there with Sam, he would be far too close to the play, so he wouldn't see the spaces and the gaps. What he'd be looking for is it is at full-back. There's no creativity, there's no vision from a point of view with passing the ball maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 yards to get our outside backs going. So please, let's all forget about Sam Tompkins playing at half-back for England.
I'm going to shock you, Gary, because I agree with you again. Actually, you know, Sam Tompkins
Have you
hasn't
been on the
played
line,
at halfback.
Martin? You've been on the
I know. I'm you know, but he hasn't played at halfback for a long time, has he, Sam Tompkins?
No.
You know, and a few games at the end of the season is not going to suddenly turn him back into being a halfback.
Well, if they win the grand final on the back of it.
Yeah, but that's a
but
massive if, Dave, isn't it? You know, and I don't think it'll happen. I mean, you know, they lost heavily to Manly at the weekend, and Manly have not been cracking any pots this season. But no, Sam's a fullback. Whether he's the best fullback for England or not, with Zach Hardaker, that's a separate issue. And you know, there's a very big argument to say that Zach perhaps, you know, is the man for the job.
Also, as well, from England's point of view, we've got to look at and having that triangle. And that triangle is you lose forward, he's 6 and 7. So you lose forward will be Sean O'Loughlin, because O'Loughlin brings you something where he can organise from the first man. Yeah. And what that will do, it will release. Because I would pick Danny Maguire at number 7. And Widdop at number 6. What Maguire brings you, what other half-backs don't. Matty Smith doesn't bring it. Maguire's a support player. Plus, as well, he's brought creativity into his game. So Maguire, for mine, would be that 7, where he could get the ball nicely out to Widdop, who could play at third man with O'Loughlin at first man there. Maguire, a support player. That's the ideal combination. That's your ideal triangle. O'Loughlin, Maguire, and Widdop for England for mine.
So Sam, we're not going to see whatever he called it, Graham. We're not going to see Sam Tompkins playing in the halves.
It doesn't sound like it. I mean, they're going with a young lad called Lola here, aren't they? Yeah. Who I guess could put himself forward for the Kiwis. That, you know, if he plays well enough for the Warriors. So I don't think we're going to see it. It would solve that Hardaker conundrum, wouldn't it? You get both Tompkins and Hardaker in there.
But doesn't it just show? You know, I mean, we're talking about our lack of depth in the halves. You know, they lose Sean Johnson, and there's no automatic. I mean, we're talking about Benji Marshall, but that's kind of turning back the clock, isn't it? It just shows that they've not necessarily got the depth there.
Absolutely, and as fantastic a player as Kieran Foran is, I think it's fair to say he's not the threat to the defensive line that Sean Johnson is. No. So that's going to really take a dimension out of their game, because Johnson, with the ball in his hands, is a threat to everybody on the field and can do anything from anywhere. They're going to miss that, definitely.
Let's face it, there are not many players like Sean Johnson who have got his incredible footwork, you know, which was honed in touch rugby actually when he was a lot younger. And I think any team would miss him, you know, whether you've got replacements or not. I think he's going to be a hell of a miss for New Zealand.
It's a massive miss for the Warriors, isn't it? I mean, they're long shots to win the grand final anyway, but you throw that X factor in there, he might win them a close playoff game. It's tough to be able to see the Warriors doing much more from now, for me anyway.
Yeah. Pressure's on in Australia, isn't it, at the moment? Tuvi's gone from Manly. Rick Stone's fired off from Newcastle. I think Rick Stone, another example of never follow the great super coach in at a club, because of course that's what he did, and he's not succeeded.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, at one time you never saw Australian clubs sacking coaches or coaches leaving clubs before the end of the season. You know, you might have seen it at the end, but to have 2 go in such quick succession is really quite unusual, and you sort of wonder why. You know, what's going on there? What's causing this change? Because of course they don't have this threat of relegation that so often is the sort of deciding factor for coaches here.
But also Manly as well. They're having a huge clear out as well with players. I think the top 14 players.
Well, Fulton's
Newcastle as well.
So it's a huge turnaround there, and you know, whether it was a little bit home comfort for the 2 coaches there, the players have got into the comfort zone. And
the really fascinating thing at Manly is that, you know, Cherry Evans was going to go to the Gold Coast. He then, you know, gave backward on that deal, and quite legitimately as he was able to. And he's staying at Manly, but they're paying him a fortune, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I'm not absolutely sure that they're wise in doing that. You know, if you've got a salary cap to give so much of it to one player, particularly a player who I think always looks a bit vulnerable, really. I'm not sure that's.
I'm not convinced with.
I don't think it's a smart move.
He can't lace Jonathan Thurston's
boots
or Cooper Crunk's boots. No. And I would say even maybe Mitchell Pearce at times. You know, he can't lace their boots. You know.
Yeah.
And if Manly are putting all their eggs in one basket with Cherry Evans, I'll tell you what,
it's a gamble.
Could he lace the boots of Chris Sandow, who Parramatta have released, of course, and has now signed for Wellington?
I think this is an interesting one with Sandow, because Warrington maybe, as we all know, with the Lee Briers factor, but you know that's got to be gone now, hasn't it? And they're looking for somebody who can grab the game by the scruff of the neck, you know, take over the organisation, take over all the vision, what they're looking for. Sandow won't bring Warrington that. He's an individual player, so is Sandow going to go at fullback, where he's got the more space, where he can play, where he'll get more opportunities, and put Ratchford there and as a long-term variation? But Sandow, for mine, well, I said certainly at time he's a fruitcake. There's no 2 ways about it. He's a fruitcake, but he will excite fans. But where will he play? And if Warrington are looking for him to be that main organising player, I'm afraid to say they've not signed the right player.
What about Gidley? You forgot Gidley. They've signed Gidley, of course, for next season.
Well, is he going to play hooker?
6,
Or
Sandow 7, Gidley 6.
Or fullback Gidley, you know. They've got a lot of options, haven't they?
Yeah.
It was noticeable in the Sandow press release that Smith, he kind of almost made a big deal of saying how much the style would suit them. He said because they play a bit off the cuff and second phase, and he'll be able to play with his head up, and that's the way Warrington
Well, that's
plays
what you've got to do with Sandow, isn't it? You've just got to say to him, go on the field.
Yeah, you give him a free roll.
Do things your own way.
Give him a free roll.
And if you're fortunate, he's going to win some games for you.
But where is the position where it's going to be best from Warrington?
Well,
he's not a halfback, Martin. He's not a halfback.
That's going to vary. I mean, Tony Smith famously said he doesn't pick play. He doesn't sign players and put players in to play in that position every week.
No.
You know, Ratchford's moved from fullback to centres to standoff, and Tony Smith's quite comfortable with that. Of that kind of
Richie Myler's going, isn't he? You know, so who's going to be playing at 7? Is it going to be young Patton playing at 7?
Well, we're going to find out fairly soon, aren't we? Because you know, going back to the Super 8s, Warrington going to Leeds that very first game. Is Sandow going to make his debut in that game? You assume he may well do. And, you know, there's a great reason to watch that game already, but if he's playing, it just makes it really quite, you know, an absolute must-see game, doesn't it? Because, you know, the impact he's going to have at Warrington is going to be great, but in an unknown way.
Yeah.
If it works, it's going to be fantastic for them, isn't it? It's like you look at Cuthbertson at Leeds, and he's come over
Albert Kelly,
Super League. It suits their styles, and they've thrived in it. If it does for Sandow, with his talent and ability, he will be terrific. But we don't know yet whether that's going to be the case.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that over in Australia they can't handle players like Sandow. Coaches they're so structured and highly regimented that any player who's a bit, you know, off, you know, a bit eccentric, they really struggle with and can't handle. And, you know, Sandow, I mean, he was at Souths, of course. Sam Bird just tweeted last week that Warrington have signed, you know, probably the most talented player he's known. And yet, Souths didn't keep him, you know, and I thought it was great with Souths. I really enjoyed watching him, and it was sort of his natural home in a way. Went to Parramatta, did some great things, but for part of the time was dropped into the reserve grade into the New South Wales Cup. You know, they just struggle to deal with players like that. I think in this country, we probably handle players, you know, like that a lot better than they do, if I'm really honest about it.
We await with interest to see what's going to happen with Chris Sandow and Warrington and the whole Super 8 and the Challenge Cup, of course. And no doubt you're watching this channel, so you're interested in the NRL. These are the games that we've got for you this weekend to look forward to. A couple of games on Friday. Starts with the Roosters against the Bulldogs. That's live at 10:35. And then at 1 o'clock, it's a delayed game from the Leichhardt Oval to the Tigers against the Storm. Saturday, 3 games for you, all of them live on Saturday morning. Warriors against the Sharks at Mount Smart Stadium, 6 a.m. Cowboys against the Raiders follows that at 8:30. And there's a nice tee-up to the second Challenge Cup semi, Hull KR against Warrington. Settle back for the Seagulls against the Broncos from the Central Coast Stadium at 10:30. Couple of games on Sunday. The Dragons against the Knights from the Jubilee Oval. That's a 5 a.m. start. And straight after that, also live, the Rabbitohs against the Panthers from the ANZ Stadium. Also on Sunday at 7 a.m. And 1 game on Monday to wrap up a terrific weekend, the Titans against the Eels, and that's a live game on Monday morning at 10 a.m. And don't forget, you can check out all of that and lots more of our Rugby League coverage on www.premiersports.tv. Well, that's about as far as we go. Some great games to look forward to then over the next few days and the next few weeks. We're back with you in a fortnight's time. But a big thank you to all our guests, Martin Sadler from League Express, to Gareth Walker from the Sunday People, Sunday Mirror and the Daily Mirror, and some bloke in the end whose name we always forget. But until next time, see you in a fortnight.